Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into a pretty fundamental question about life itself, all based on the fascinating work of Dr. Michael Levin. We're about to challenge something we all think we know, where the instructions for life actually come from.
So, if I were to ask you where the blueprint for a body is stored, you'd probably say the DNA, right? That's what we've all been taught. But what if that's not the whole story? What if the genome isn't the blueprint at all, but just the hardware, and the real blueprint is running somewhere else?
All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we're going to look at the body's hidden software. Then we'll get into this idea of a universe of patterns. From there, we'll explore intelligence as a spectrum. And finally, we'll see how this becomes a whole new actionable science. Okay, let's start with what's basically Biology 101. For decades, the central idea has been that the genome, our DNA, has all the instructions needed to build a whole organism, right from the very start. Well, as Dr. Levin puts it so bluntly, that's just not the case. It's a huge misconception. Now, the genome is absolutely essential, but all it really does is specify the parts list, the proteins. That's it. It's kind of like a list of all the different types of bricks and screws you can use, but it says absolutely nothing about the building's architecture, nothing about where the walls go, or why you have two eyes and not five. So what we're talking about is a really fundamental shift in thinking. We're moving away from this idea of a static, fixed blueprint in the DNA and towards something much more dynamic, a kind of problem-solving software that runs on top of the cellular hardware. And it's this bioelectric software that's actually telling the cells how to organize themselves into a complex body. And if you want to see this software in action, you've got to meet the Planarian flatworm. This little guy is an absolute champion of regeneration. I mean, you can chop one into hundreds of pieces, the record is 276, and every single piece will grow back into a perfect, complete worm. Now that right there tells you the blueprint isn't in just one place, it's a distributed network. And you know what? That network can be hacked. And this is where it gets really wild. By tweaking those bioelectric signals, basically editing the software, scientists can get the cells to build a two-headed worm. And here's the kicker. Its DNA is completely unchanged. But the most amazing part? That new body plan, it gets stored. If you take that two-headed worm and cut it up, the pieces also grow back into two-headed worms. It's just undeniable proof that a memory of the body's shape exists totally separate from the genetic code. So that leads to a huge question. If the instructions for a two-headed worm can be stored outside of DNA, where on earth is that information living? And to answer that, we have to step outside of biology and into a much bigger, more abstract, but really powerful idea. Dr. Levin puts forward this concept he calls Platonic space. Think of it as a kind of non-physical library of every possible pattern and truth that could ever exist. It's not a place you can visit, but a realm of pure information. So mathematical truths like the number pi or the idea of a perfect triangle, they live there. And Levin's big idea is that maybe the blueprints for bodies and even minds live there too. And this right here is the core analogy. Mathematical truths like pi don't physically exist anywhere. You can't hold pi in your hand, but our physical universe has to play by its rules. Well, Levin suggests that minds have the same kind of relationship with brains. The mind isn't created by the brain. Instead, the brain is more like an antenna, an interface that tunes into a specific mind pattern from that Platonic space. You see, the crucial point is that bodies, our bodies, an animal's body, maybe even an artificial one, are acting like what computer scientists call a thin client. It's just a simple terminal that connects to a much more powerful system that's running somewhere else. Our bodies are the physical hardware that lets these non-physical patterns, these minds, show up and do things in our world. Now, this idea is so big it goes way beyond just biology. It suggests that cognition, which is really just the ability to pursue goals, isn't an all-or-nothing thing. It exists on this universal spectrum that could apply to even the simplest non-living systems you can think of. Just look at this really amazing finding from computer science. Some researchers made a very simple algorithm to sort numbers. But when they threw a few different versions of these simple algorithms together, something totally unexpected happened. Before they got around to sorting, the algorithms first made it a priority to cluster together with their own kind. It's like they had a sub-goal, an intrinsic motivation to find their family, and nobody ever programmed that in. And this all points to a whole new way of looking at intelligence. Instead of just asking, is it intelligent, yes or no, we can see it as a spectrum. Dr. Levin calls this the cognitive light cone. It's basically the scale of the biggest goals a system can work towards. A thermostat has a tiny cone, you know? It's just thinking about the temperature right now. A human, on the other hand, can set goals that go on for generations, long past their own life. Okay, so I know this might sound like a far-out philosophical debate, but it's not. Dr. Levin is very clear. This is an actionable research program. It's a powerful new lens for looking at the world, one that is already opening up transformative, real-world applications in medicine and technology.
So why does any of this really matter? Well, it's simple. If we can actually understand the software of life, these patterns that guide everything, then we can learn to rewrite it. We can learn to communicate with and persuade all kinds of systems, from a single cell to a whole organism, to do brand new, incredible things.
And this isn't science fiction. This new perspective is already producing some stunning breakthroughs. By learning the language of this bioelectric software, scientists are figuring out how to talk to groups of cells. They can persuade them to repair birth defects, regenerate lost limbs, and even build totally new kinds of life forms from scratch. Like these Xenobots, they are literally hacking the software of life. And that brings us to one last, really provocative thought that could change how we see everything. If bodies are just interfaces, then we might be surrounded by a whole universe of different minds and intelligences that we just haven't built the right hardware to see, or to talk to. Not yet, anyway. The journey to discover them is really just beginning.